guest.
We have a special guest, Wilson Wilson.
Wilson, everybody. Yay! Wilson.
Good morning. I had to do a lot of big healing myself, and we were talking about that actually in the live last week that, you know, I got to spend, so for those who don't know, I was probably in West Virginia for like 4 years, and we were both raised in Florida, and Florida is not like a ton better either, but it's just been very tricky because in some of these places, the value systems that are around and what a lot is built out of is not easy to break out of. And in West Virginia especially, they get so few people from other areas that there's really ingrained family systems that are very toxic. V and I were sharing in Florida, like we just didn't really have space to be ourselves. So there's just a lot of sides of myself that ended up getting very pushed to the side because of the society I lived in. I was not safe with a lot of my mental health stuff. I wasn't safe in my queerness. I wasn't safe breaking out of religious patterns. And so a lot of it was really tricky. And I went from Florida to West Virginia, and it was really hard to break out of these patterns. I think moving to Colorado was huge for me, to be able to shift even more in a healthy way and get to like integrate sides of myself that I had not had space for before. And yeah, both V and I are very neurodivergent. I think right now there is so much happening in the government that is restrictive for people that have different mental health diagnoses. Like it's really, really crazy to see what is happening. But what's also beautiful with the negativity of what's going on is that I think so many of us have now done the mental health journey and owned our diagnoses and have figured out so much about ourselves and really learned that we are not a problem for what we are.
Yeah, I feel like too much of our generation knows that we're not this like burden that needs to be locked in the attic. So like the fact that they're trying to kind of
do that again.
Yeah, but it's not going to be as effective because there's too much knowledge that there wasn't before, you know?
There's been so much empowerment and watching everyone just love and own all the pieces of themselves, and we can't go back to not having that self-value. Once you know how to love yourself, it doesn't go away. Once you know, you can't unknow. And I feel like all of our knowings, like it's been very validating to learn about the different elements of my mental health. And I feel very happy to have all the knowledge that I do, so no one can take that away from me. But it's wild that the government is doing what it's doing, truly. I've never liked me, and I finally do. And that's such a win, you know?
That is you.
I've made a lot of videos that he is barking at his reflection in a mirror.
That is you.
So the pieces that are a part of your self-love journey and make you like deeply love yourself and find like all of that self-validation, it's a journey that doesn't hold like a lot of value in the external world because we have learned to value things like getting a college degree, getting a job, getting a partner, having children, and like all of these milestones, when I feel like what I've given my last like 10 years of my life has been something that you can't see on the external as much as I can feel on the internal. And like the external world doesn't affect my internal world much at all anymore. And it's such a win. I've put more love, time, and attention and care to something that maybe not everyone can see, but I used to have so many patterns of shame and self-hatred and just battles with my body, battles with my mental health that were so roller coastery. Bad relationship to food and self-care and just letting people's words impact me like all of the time. Like these little things that have taken so many nights of reflection and journaling and therapy and somatic releasing and energy work and just things that maybe you can't see on the external. I might be behind in some areas of life in the normal
denominational amen.
But I feel very proud of the journey, truly. And no one can take that from me, you know? It's an adaptability that I have earned, and I think the work that it takes, like, I love myself, like, I like who I am. I know the backing of that line. It's not just a choice one day you make. It is deep layers, and I wish resume could reflect how big of a win that is, you know? Like, it should also be the most celebrated win when someone can be like, I like myself. Like, how the hell did you do that? Like, whoa, share the facts, like your references, you know. It's just funny. We've been doing resumes over here too.
Yeah.
And it just makes me laugh. Like, some of the twists and turns along the way, I'm just like, you don't even know how much of a value system it is to have someone that knows how to deal with their emotions.
You'd be lucky to have me, truly.
Like so
it's like
lucky.
much more than mentality.
Have anything to prove to nobody, you know. You start realizing that getting validation for people that continue to refuse to see themselves and all the layers. We are both very catalyzing people. I think we bring wounds up in a lot of people,
and not everyone's ready for that.
And looking for validation for people that don't know how to see themselves is just going to be a lose-lose always. It doesn't end up giving you any more satisfaction to hear something from people that very rarely know how to even hear and understand half of the stuff that's actually going on beyond a very small context of reality. So we both have had to go no contact with families for periods of time.
Some more permanently than others.
Yeah.
But that's also why we created our community. Like, we have our little Senseful Souls community, and it's literally there for people who are in that part of the healing journey where, like, I don't know, it feels good to talk to people who understand what you're putting together. Like, I was telling someone this weekend that I'm guided by such a compass of my own knowing that I cannot always put into, like, verbal English. Like, I'm moving my life from Colorado to Asheville because I feel a pull, like, that doesn't land with a lot of people. Like, oh, my guides are telling me I need to go here, like, doesn't fit with normal people, really.
People don't understand
that sounds
intuition.
Insane. But if I tell that to our community, they're like, yeah, absolutely, I hear you.
Follow
like,
that intuition.
Go. So, like, that's kind of the whole point of it, which is why we try to keep it as accessible as possible.
Too, but I think for me, if I wouldn't have gone no contact with people for periods of time.
Oh,
Bubba.
He said, stop looking at that phone, look at me. I'm a mirror ball.
Okay, so I don't get off track. We'll circle back to that.
Cutting off family. No, come here. I'll hold you.
So I think for me, if I wouldn't have gone no contact for a period of time, my nervous system would have not been able to get out of fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode enough that I actually could find safety in my own body to do the healing work. So if something in your environment and keeping, you know, loose boundaries with family members because they're family and you're supposed to respect them is keeping your body in a constant state of panic, I don't think that that's worth it. And I think it's really hard when you're in, like, that survival mode to do the deeper healing work. Like, you need to be able to space yourself out enough that you can let your body crash out of that constant threat mode before you can actually potentially down the line in the future re-enter that space without going into that mode. If I wouldn't have taken space for a couple years from my family, I would have never been able to do the level of healing work because I didn't realize how much I go into a mode every time I'm with them, and I needed my body to be able to find a deeper sense of safety before I could just keep exposing myself to that level. So I needed to actually change my threshold. So if I would have never left Florida, my threshold would have never been able to
so much same
get to a place. Like, I know there are some people that family, just because of circumstance or children, like they have to do the healing really close to
family,
all of their triggers and family. That is some like next level, that is some next level work, because your body rides on patterns so much, and being triggered constantly is very hard, and putting boundaries in place when you're still in the same area and not actually being able to put boundaries in a different way,
it's so hard.
It's very, very hard. So
can I tap in?
Yeah.
So to add on to that, so I feel like it started with family, but then like even for me, it got to the point where like I moved my younger brother and myself and our partners out to Colorado, and it was me and his now wife, and then my brother and my now ex, and even go out there, like I had space to grow more from not being connected to all of my family. But then there even got to be a point in my healing journey where I realized like I kind of brought everyone out so they could all heal, and then I was the only one that was healing. So after about 3 years, like it just really started to be that I was again finding that like I'm the problem, because everyone around me still wasn't understanding my need to expand. They were like, why can't this be enough for you? And I'm like, because it makes me feel insane. Like, you guys are just doing the daily grind to say you did it, but that does not feel like succeeding to me in my heart. But like, if that's good for you, that's good for you. But like, because they're watching me, this is where Jen came on with the catalyzer comment, is like, because I'm sitting there in the corner and they're watching me expand into like better versions of myself and like be happier and stuff, but they're not wanting to make those choices. They're like projecting onto me like, why can't you just be happy with what you're at, instead of like realizing that they're not actually as satisfied as they'd like to believe they are. So that was like a whole other like layer of shedding, where like you just realize. But then what happens is like there's a point of the process of healing where you feel like, God, I'm losing everybody, maybe it is me. But then you start finding your people, and then you start finding more people, and people just start understanding you in a way that you have wounds of feeling like no one's ever really heard you before. And now you're realizing that that's the only person telling you that is yourself, because all of the people who did not understand you have gone, and you have now attracted the people who are right there with you. Like, you've attracted your village, and they're cheering you on. So then it gets to be this beautiful state of like, I am surrounded by love and support in the way that I need, and now I get to shed my own limiting beliefs that were like given to me by like people of my past, but now I do not have to hold on to this knowledge, because no one besides myself is thinking this anymore, which is kind of beautiful too.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, and they're understanding actual you. Like, I think that's the hardest part, is when you are saying like, hey, lovingly, you are relating to an old version of me and you're trying to put me in this box, but that's not me anymore. Like, this is who I am, and I really fought for this version. I would like this version to be what is known. Like, I don't want my past to keep defining every bit of me, and I want to like be talking to you different. I don't want to be communicating in that way. I don't want the patterns of that to still be how, and you're trying to explain like, I am something different, and you are not seeing that, and they are refusing to get to know the new versions of you. That is so stifling. So it's not only meeting people who understand you, it's people that are willing to actually meet the version of you where you're at. And I think people from your past, so often, if they don't grow with you, cannot even relate to the version that you're saying you are.
Well, and then I feel like there comes a point where they think you were trying to leave them, and not seeing that like your hand's extended for you to grab at any point. But like, that in itself, like, it's so much easier to be dragged down by someone who's not doing the work versus help someone come up who's not doing the work. It's different if they're like, hey, I'm trying my best, can you just like, you know, help me, like, you know, there's a learning curve. But if they're not actually putting in the work and they're just expecting you to pull them along, what's more likely going to happen is you're going to get pulled back down.
Yeah. And so I think by finding your people, it's that deeper love that actually comes from knowing the truer layers of yourself. And yes, like what you said, Emily, authenticity, it's so freaking huge.
Well, and that deeper connection to like love of self, like I think once you actually hold self-love, it's hard to hate yourself again. Like it really is. It's hard to, like, you can slide in there, but once you like regulate, you're like, oh, that was really fucking weird of me, like I'm so deserving. Like, all of that is clearly, like, past stuff that came up, you know?
I'll share, Emily, like, we are in a full moon in Scorpio. It was yesterday. It's still happening today. And Scorpio takes you really back to the deeper depths, the stuff that we don't always want to look at. And a lot of it comes from wanting to validate our shadows and what we do when that feeling gets really intense. So, you know, looking at the pattern of course you want love and connection and intimacy and truth and closeness. Like that is, Scorpio craves really intimate and deep relationships. So when the full moon comes up, this full moon was really about like what we do when those emotions get really erratic and like what comes up. And for you, that being linked to like old family and just wanting those people to see you is such a relatable feeling, and it can get so frustrating when those feelings get loud. But I think having people that are seeing you and holding the boundary that like, I don't want people that I have to wave my hands for to like actually see even a piece of me. It should be a value system within yourself that you are wanting to see people as they are, and you're also honoring what someone's emotionally telling you they're going through. That is what like actual intimacy, what it is wanting to know the feelings that someone is experiencing and meeting those feelings. You can't have intimacy with like half-ass understanding. Intimacy is like the purest form of connection when you are really being known.
I mean, you can have intimacy with half-ass understanding. It just isn't gonna hit the same.
I don't think it's even intimacy at that point. It's like
compliance.
Yeah, it's missing. Intimacy is like the most beautiful freaking thing. But to me, it's like the actual intimacy comes from the purest form of authenticity and understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty.
Other than that, it's just like physical closeness is only one little shred of what ends up being actual intimacy. And intimacy with people is what is actual connection, and actual connection is equal giving and receiving, and you can't have that if you're hiding blocks of yourself.
It's also, you can't have that if someone refuses to understand who you are.
Yeah, or like themselves.
But like, especially if, like, because I don't think ever you're asking someone to change, but like half the time the catalyzing energy comes from someone being threatened by your own transformation. You know, so like if you refuse to understand yourself, like I feel like there's a part of me that can like kind of level with that, like, because that might be your life path to be where you are, right? But like when people start to feel like, no, this isn't who you are, the 16-year-old version of you is who you are, like, be that, like, that's when I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Or even like the year ago version of you, like I refuse to see the person in front of me because I want to see the person whom I met, the person who I know. But like I am, you know, time is weird and not really all that real, but like, you know, yes, that like past version of you still exists in the past, like that was real, but like also this version of me in this moment is real. And I think if people can't, you know, grasp that transformation, like that's where people fall off, because you shouldn't have to put yourself in a box for other people to feel comfortable, like point blank.
And I think what it comes down to, I love that we have multiple people that are ex-evangelical. I mean, we same pain, you know what I mean? But I think what it comes down to is change is really hard. Change is change is ultimately, we are meant to keep expanding, and I think we get so scared and cling to comfort zones, but the universe always has a way of making us break old patterns, and it will pull something forward so that you will catalyze change. But I think so many people don't want change, and they cling so hard to what is known and what is familiar. And if you don't do that dance, which comes, I think, when you know how to listen to your intuition's always going to push you to keep expanding.
We literally just ran a program that was like, it was 30 days of integration. We put a lot of love into it, of like helping people tap into their intuition on like a small scale daily like range. It's probably like 20 minutes a day worth of like activities, but the whole point is to do these things for 30 days. And then even when it's over, like if you do it another 30 days, like it just starts to add this like element of moving through your day with intention, and like bringing that intuition to the forefront of every choice you're making. So you know it's for like your highest self, your highest good type vibe, you know?
Yeah, so that was our Witchy Way program. And so, you know, we work on constantly transforming and changing and moving. And so when you interact with us, we are constantly trying to evolve and change. So people wanting to, every time they're with us, go like, ooh, what have you been focusing on? Like what is the work you're doing? I think most of us that are on the healing journey, when we find other people together where we can talk about this stuff, we realize that we're getting to meet a new person every time we're interacting with them. So share what's been coming up for you. Share what you know. Versus
vulnerability is also like such a strong form of, like we were just talking about, the many different variations of intimacy. Being vulnerable, showing someone your human side is so beautiful, because it reminds them that they are allowed to be human too. I feel like a lot of our society is like, I am fine, I go to work, I am fine, but we're all clearly not fine. So
yes, Emily, even just being able to share like, these last couple days were really hard, this is what I did, like that's a beautiful thing to be able to say, like this is hard, this is what is challenging. Like I would love and support and to be heard in what is going on. Like this is like what actual like substance is. And I think there is just people that you end up having to put boundaries on at different areas of your life, because they aren't wanting to keep expanding. They are trying so hard to stay in a box of what is comfortable, and what is comfortable is so limiting. What is comfortable ends up like blocking emotional growth. It keeps you very immature. It keeps you very easily triggered, because you are not knowing how to continue to expand emotional intelligence. You're not able to keep expanding on what your intuition is trying to tell you. And then you're just meeting all of these like icky, limiting factors in people that just, it doesn't feel good. It feels like a lot of deflection, a lot of projection.
So Jen's been deep in the astrology well for like 8 years now, something like that. I've been in astrology, but I was only really in like sun moon astrology for a long time, because I didn't have a Jen to explain all the deeper things for me. It's gonna make us make sure we're still here. So yeah, I've only been deep in the well for almost 2 years now. And I've slowly, very casually been collecting the birth chart information of everyone in like my family, everyone I interact with. And as I'm looking at the charts, I'm like, okay, so for one, the family, we don't get to choose our blood family. So I'm like, this is why you annoy me. This is why we can't talk to each other. Like, it makes so much sense on like an astrological level that like, okay, maybe they're not just a douche. Like maybe we just talk completely differently.
Our souls are kind of here to learn different things.
Yeah, exactly. So like, okay, we're just on different trajectories, and that can be okay. But then with my friends, what's so beautiful and what I absolutely love is like, I run my chart with my friend's chart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this complements this for me, like this is the same. Like, it's so beautiful to see how, yeah, like you just end up attracting the people you need.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot about, I think it sounds like a lot of us here in this space have had no contact with certainly certain friends and family members. I think another layer that we didn't mention that I think is really important, I think astrology, like V is saying, like, help me understand this, that people can be in your life and part of their piece in your life, I think we have such expectation that everyone is going to stay like super close to us and be super good. There are some people in your life that are meant to come in for periods of life, and this might be your own family, to catalyze something for you, and that can be the end of your soul contract. Like, there might be people that are meant to come in to push you onto a different path, and that's it. And that can be beautiful in itself. It might not be what is perceived as good, but it could be exactly what you needed. Like, there can be people that bring a really rough, like, you know, relationship, and that could be exactly what their purpose was meant to be. We tend to want to squeeze everyone into the most pure form. You can find like grace and forgiveness just by thinking like, maybe that person was there to really make me uncomfortable staying in connection with them, and that can be because I was meant to become a different person, and that could have been the most loving thing.
Maybe your lesson was to learn how to set boundaries,
and to step away.
Your first step of setting a boundary.
Yeah. That gives me a lot of grace, because like I look at some of the family members that I have the deepest pain with. Our astrologies conflict so bad, but I can see like a little piece of their astrology where I'm like, oh, that helped me actually probably stand in my power in a way that maybe I wouldn't have seen had they not triggered me to see that. So like my mom and I's birth chart, they don't go well together. I am such an anomaly for my mother, and she's said this my whole life. I've never like, you just do things very different than me. Yeah. It's in the stars. Like
correct.
It is correct.
Same with my chart. So my family is a lot of like a lot of Pisces, like
a water.
lot of Pisces, and I'm very Virgo. There's like a sprinkle here and there of like, oh, this is the same, but if you put up any of my like immediate family's chart next to my chart, it's very clear that I was not gonna walk the same path as them. Like it's very similar energy, but then completely opposite at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think so, Lindsay, on your point too, so some of the people that trigger you, it's not because you're meant to necessarily resolve the relationship, like, and it doesn't mean you have to look at them with like, you know, all the love. Like, you can validate the fact that someone really hurt you and also understand that that pain, like, you know, you don't have to hold on to it, and you don't have to then like let the expectation that you wanted it to be different be what drives. Like, that's so much what ends up hurting us is our own expectations. We should never, that is where V has been on such a journey this year in yoga about being unattached. Like, to me, that's in yoga, there's philosophies that help you find your way to enlightenment. And attachment is one of those lessons. So being unattached is not putting expectations on something. So expectation is normally what hurts us. We expect things to be all very loving. We expect things to be really good. We expect things to always go with ease, when expectation is usually what ends up driving us to the deepest pain. Like, they're my family, so I expect them to love me. They're my friends, so I expect them to constantly give me this, and this. Expectations can be really, really painful when we put them on. You can hold boundaries for yourself, and you can see who is honoring those boundaries or really stepping on those boundaries, and you can make rules for it. But I think what hurts us the most is often just like us expecting the things to only go very like positive, and sometimes
I don't even think it's that. I just think it's because obviously my brain's a little different. Like, the expectation also comes from like, if someone has hurt you, like having that expectation of they're not going to show up because they haven't showed up. And like, instead, like, laying the boundary that like, if they don't show up, then this, and if they do show up, then this, like, I think it's a little bit easier than being like, oh, well, so and so is never on time.
Yeah.
So they're not, like, they're not going to show up for me on this because you have to be on time,
Mm-hmm. And
I think it's both sides of the spectrum, not just like expectation of positivity, was all I was saying.
Yeah, it can be expectation of the negative. But you also have to think then that like our ultimate goal is to evolve and grow and shift, and that's not all going to fall into one category, good or bad either. There can be people that come in and catalyze things for both extremes, and that can be the most loving thing. It just might not be what we wanted it to look like. And I think it's important just to understand, and astrology has helped me see this, I think, more than anything, that there is just certain energies that I'm going to struggle with. And that can be really beautiful because it helps me see an angle that I probably wouldn't see otherwise if I didn't have some of those catalyzing forces.
Yoga is also so like beautiful for that same processing, because like for me, like yoga does help you regulate your nervous system. Like I mentioned this earlier, everything really does always circle back around to your nervous system, regardless of like where you're speaking on your person. Like the nervous system holds, it's basically like our own personal like electric current. That's where our frequencies are coming from. That's where you can see the chakra connections, and the there's like all these other energetic bodies too that exist within that. The chakra points are just kind of like the 7 easiest ones to remember, but that's where you see that. That's also where, like, if I'm suppressing something, if I'm suppressing anger and I'm not using my voice, it's not my throat that flares up for me, it's my lower back. My lower back will seize if I'm like really pissed off, and it's like I'm justified in being pissed off, but I also feel like if I say something, then it's just gonna cause more anger than or like more trouble than it's worth. Like I'll get to the point where like 3 days in, I cannot move my back like every single time, and that's my nervous system. That's where my nervous system holds anger. So like all that being said, when it comes to the understandings of things, I think astrology is so beautiful to look at and say, okay, this is where that's coming from. But then to actually like move past the understanding and into the like embodiment of like both coping and like moving past that understanding, I think yoga is so helpful for that, because it really does help you align both energetically and physically. And like there's so many, I barely get through a yoga class without like, I'm not always crying, but like I'll have at least 4 or 5 tears like just fall out of my eyes throughout yoga, because my body's just regulating and it's finding its center again. And I think having those small practices, like you don't have to meet your mat for an hour and a half every single day. Like you don't have to go that hard. I think a lot of people also think that like this could be a simple 15-minute coming to my mat. Maybe I'm not even doing a class. Maybe I'm just doing a couple poses that I know and it feels good in my body. But doing that, you're giving your body a chance to come back to like a regulated state. So even though you learned the truth and the understanding, even though like, you held space for whatever emotion came up, like you can still come back to that like point of like homeostasis, like where you're supposed to be like regulated.
Yeah. Yawning on the yoga mat, crying on the yoga mat, yelling on the yoga mat.
Yeah, no, whenever I have like a panic attack or I've just had like a really big cry, like Jen always is like looking for my first yawn, because as soon as I yawn, she knows that I'm like
coming back
and I'm not actually like, I'm not gonna spike again.
If you're building a practice for showing up to your body or doing yoga, I will always share that I do yoga 3 times a week, and I have for the last like 7-8 years. And for me, I put no restrictions on what those 3 times a week yoga looked like. So it could be go into one pose, hold it for 1 breath 3 times a week. If you can't do one shape 3 times a week, there can't be like 10 seconds of your life in the week that you give to your body. You might want to reflect on that. That's a low bar. It's a low bar. We can all do that. But what has happened was it would be Sunday and I'm like, oh no, I've only done yoga twice. And I'm like, okay, in this moment, all I have to do is 1 pose and I can say that I did yoga 3 times. But slowly that built up a habit to now, I do like way longer yoga classes now. And I often do it more than 3 times a week. But that was how I built the habit, is I only have to show up for 3 moments in my week to do yoga. And yoga could be 1 pose, 5 breaths, Could be one pose, one breath. Like, you can do that. So you can build up that habit loop of showing
And
up
one
for
of
yourself.
my funnest facts that I learned throughout my practice of yoga, earlier I kind of downplayed and said I did yoga consistently every day for 4 months, but the reality is I've actually done it every day since. But yoga actually started off not as the asana practice that we know it as, with all these poses and movements. Like, yoga in its truest form used to be a practice of stillness. So even when you're going to meditate, like, you're technically practicing yoga, because you're taking a practice of stillness for however long that is. And so, like, yeah, just like poses definitely help, and I do recommend the poses, but also too, like, maybe that is just sitting in an easy seat with your legs crossed for a minute and just breathing does technically still count as yoga.
Bye.